Welcome to the episode of The Other Russian. So today I'm gonna go back and try to finish where I stayed last time. So yeah, the electricity went down. I was sitting in a cafe and then it eventually went up and everything started to work. But for me at that moment I thought that, okay, that's it, it's time to wrap up. So I'm still in Delhi. I've just met with Oriflame, with some big corporate guys, let's put it this way, to discuss project that I've been working on behalf of my agency. But before I dig into that, I guess let's take a step back and talk about the agency and the reasons I'm actually here in the first place. So I've been working in the big corporates. I used to sell Cyprus-based real estate to rich Russians and oligarchs and politicians. I spent there 3.5 years or so, and then I was responsible for opening a branch in Yekaterinburg of the company. And then I moved to Nielsen, where I've spent another 3 years, and yeah, I mentioned about them. So I was in charge of marketing effectiveness and basically understanding what works or what doesn't in terms of advertising and all marketing efforts. So after that, I've been in charge of the group of clients, the alcohol group of clients. So I know well both like beer producers and liquor companies. And after that, I spent 3 years at the GAP partnership, where I train people in negotiation, help them to conduct negotiations and get like desired results. So in terms of building strategy for them, how to negotiate with their counterparts. And after that, in March 2021, I was offered by a friend of mine. Oh shit, I completely forgot that between Nielsen and the Cyprus company, I spent almost 2 years in advertising industry. Was at that point in time the most creative ad agency in Russia. I think there still are. It's called Vaskhod. And this is where I met some people from this industry, Anton and Igor, and those were, if you scroll forward, my business partners. So I went to Nielsen and then to the GAP partnership, and they went on their own. They've opened up an agency called Fanatic. So they've been building strategies basically for brands, for companies, and help them put meaning behind it. So they've been quite successful. It started in 2015, if I remember correctly, and yeah, 2021, my old buddy Anton, head of strategy and partner at the agency and one of the founders, but currently the only one left there because others somehow evaporated over the course of years. So our last partner, Igor, he was a communication head, a head of creative. He is an extremely talented copywriter. He won Cannes Lions at some point in time, and he won shitload of awards for the projects that he did, creative, advertisement, and not only that, he is a director of movies, actually, short films, or how are they called, I don't remember anyway. And so anyway, at some point in time last year, he decided to branch off and follow his pursuit and heart calling, I guess you can call it. So he left the company and then went to direct movies, and he actually got a letter from, I forgot the name of the author. Shit, gonna remember it next time. Anyway, so he branched off, and only two of us stayed. But yeah, back in 2021, there was two of them as partners, and there was another person working with them as a researcher, basically. So Anton asked me if I wanted to join them because they lacked this kind of business approach in terms of procedures and everything. So when I came on board, and it was a tough decision to leave the corporate world and go into the unknown, but it was the best decision I've made in my life, because that completely changed my paradigm and shifted it from being a corporate worker to being an entrepreneur, pretty much. And it started off good. I mean, that person, the third person that was there, she left after a month of me joining. Not because of me. I mean, I was not the reason. She was burned out, so it was just 3 of us, and then currently it's 10 of us ever since. So we recently hired 2 people, the junior position people, for positions of like what's it, like researcher, analyst, yeah, with the goal to become strategists, because we believe that the sociology background gives you an advantage in marketing. So this is what we use, and we help companies to reinvent themselves and focus their revenue streams around brand pretty much, and use it as a main vehicle to drive growth and revenue. And there are cases that we did which really kind of reshaped entire businesses, and we've been working with the 2 out of 5 biggest insurance companies in Russia, and for one of them we helped them to build a brand and then restructure their entire product proposition, R&D department, communication, HR, strategy, and the way they treat their customers and everything around brand. So the goal was to make world a safer place. So yeah, it was put at the core and then used across the business to kind of rebuild it from scratch in a sense. And it lasted for 2.5 years. It was long before I came on board. After that, we had different projects, not of such scale, but still. And at some point in time, while thinking on what to do next with that war happening and shit, so we were considering entering EU markets and bring our expertise, knowledge, our case studies, and just kind of try and get business. So it was March 2022. I was in the business for a year at that moment in time, like exactly, and we were sitting there and thinking, like, what are we gonna do? So let's try and enter EU market. And we had this Norwegian company, an IT giant or something like that. So they are specialized in business transformations, digital transformation. Well, digital, not business. Well, digital by default requires business transformation, hence me mentioning it in the first place, nevertheless. So the idea here is that there was a person who was working in Yandex, and we've worked with Yandex heavily. We've helped them build brand for their marketplace, for their logistics business unit, which is ambitious to take over National Post in Russia, and their e-grocery delivery, last mile delivery called Yandex Lavka. So we worked with all of them, and we even did some work for like main brand for Yandex in terms of trend watching. So then this woman, she joined this Norwegian company and decided to bring us on board because she knew that the level of expertise we possess is sublime in terms of Russia, and not only. And so we discussed the project, we pitched it, we provide the details, the quotations and shit like that. And then in the middle of March, we get a response from them. So she writes back and says, I have 2 news, good news and bad news. I'm like, okay, let's start with good news. So good news is project got confirmed. I was like, oh, perfect, beautiful. Shall we start? Bad news, we cannot work with you. I was like, what? She said, hey, you're Russians. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we are eager to open a legal entity in Lithuania and conduct business only through this entity in EU. So would you be able to pass that message to the management team? Because, we understand the emotions around it, the war conflict and shit like that, but come on, I mean, we're playing by the books, we're not gonna kind of try and avoid sanctions and shit like that, or we're not doing anything shady, we're just marketing agency pretty much at that point in time. So she said, yeah, I'll check. So she comes back and says no. I say, okay, so what did they say? She says, well, they said that you would be avoiding sanctions. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what sanctions? So this was a pretty strong message in terms of whether or not we'd be able to conduct any business in the EU. We've made some attempts to kind of start with Lithuania. Well, the problem is that the work that we do in terms of the value is not widely recognized, and there are not many companies in the world that recognize it. Typically, there are big multinationals and then mainly FMCG like P&G, like Johnson and Johnson, Mars, Nestle. I think they are, oh, Unilever, of course. They're the ones like driving this marketing knowledge and expertise across the entire world because they're bringing this expertise along with their management team in any market where they enter. And well, of course, Pepsi, Coke, same. So pretty much marketing expertise in Russia is founded on pillars of those big multinational clients. And there's this thing called well, brand assets or brand platform. And in many cases in Russia, when you do a business for somebody and you develop a brand platform, so they ask to make it a pyramid, and it's standard pyramid, and then you think and you kind of try to convey the message that look, guys, pyramid is just a fucking shape. I mean, it could be like brand onion, brand potato, brand key, brand door, brand wall. I mean, whatever the fuck you want to call it, the shape of it just is irrelevant entirely. So the reason they ask this is that there were key people that kind of then spread the knowledge from the corporate world to the local agencies and other local businesses. And a lot of people from P&G kind of, you know, tried to, maybe they didn't even try it intentionally, or who knows, maybe they did. But anyway, somehow it became obvious that companies now treat this as a standard, but this is just a fucking visual form. It doesn't matter. So if you put shit in it and you shape it in a form of a pyramid, it doesn't make it good, it's still shit. So that's not what we do. So we put meaning, like strong meaning behind those brands, which resonate strongly and, you know, kind of connects with people on their deeper emotional level, pretty much. And yeah, so this, and of course, Lithuanian market is small. It's just in terms of EU, it's not that big. There are many companies in there, and of course, none of them were and still aren't interested to work with the Russians for apparent reasons, of course. And even though, you know, we have nothing to do with war, even though we have developed and actually done a brand strategy for one of the biggest Russian banks for Ukraine market, and we've kind of shipped off and signed off this project in February. Oh, sorry. Yeah, February 2022. And my business partner Anton is teaching brand strategy, so he was working with a Ukraine school called Skvot, and he was teaching brand strategy there. And his new I don't know, group was actually starting February 24th. So, you know, imagine the frustrateness of this, the gravity of this situation that we felt. And of course, we are the ones that are strongly against what is happening. And we try to connect with some people from NGOs and from, let's say, social initiatives to try and bring value. We tried to even bring some researchers on board and some human rights activists, but didn't go far because the project lacked funding. The goal of the project was to basically just wave to my friend Ashish. He didn't see me. Maybe, no, fine. It's just across the road. There's a place called Blue Tokai, and it's like a center of gravity in Greater Kailash too, in New Delhi. They're all my mates. You can just find them there. So if you go there, you can find them. It's like that in Shantaram. What was this place? Leopold, in a sense, but local to Delhi and nuanced. So yeah, where was I with it? So it was apparent that nobody's going to work with us because we're Russians, and we tried to start with Lithuania, but even in such a small market, nobody got interested. There was this local guy who wanted to kind of partner up, but then he pulled out. The reason is that he felt that, you know, too strong connection with Russia and such would kind of influence his reputation. In Lithuania, it's a strong sentiment against kind of everything that's happening within Russia, and you know, they're trying to cut ties, they're trying to cancel businesses that are doing business with Russia, even though they're still fucking doing it, but you know, it's just hypocrisy of it. Anyway, so we've spent there some time, and then shit doesn't see me. Spent there some time, and then thought about like, what are we gonna do? We thought about, you know, trying to put more emphasis on Russian market, but it was obvious to me that it's a matter of time when it starts to collapse in terms of opportunities for us. And the reason being is that we as a business, we provide like a lot of value to the companies. However, it requires competition. So if there is no competition, you don't give a shit about brand pretty much. I mean, it's monopoly, oligopoly, or whatever the fuck you call it. You just don't need it. So what was happening is that some companies, some multinationals, started to pull out their business. Actually, funny thing, there's this list. I think I can try and find it and put somewhere in the notes. So there was one institution, I'm not sure if it's Oxford, probably some other one. They tried to do a list of businesses that kind of said they would leave Russia, left Russia, and stayed. So in order to be then furtherly shamed by the society, and being pointed with fingers and saying, "Ooh, boo, you're still doing business in Russia. You're still, paying for the war and shit like that." So anyway, so some companies left, some companies stayed. They kind of changed their legal entity, and it's different company, unassociated, but still, does business. And they just found local partners, repackaged, and that's it. Business as usual. But for me, well, obvious that it's a matter of time when the companies start to leave the country on more bigger scale, and with them the competition would die off eventually, because by 2022 already roughly 80% of the entire economy was government owned or kind of influenced in a sense. So basically private sector is like roughly 20%, and out of those 20% the majority of course are big multinationals. So once they started to kind of leave, their business assets get acquired by the state, it was obvious that at some point in time it's just going to be 100% state-owned companies, and that's it. You don't need the fucking brand, you don't need anything, you don't need, because there's no competition, you don't need to stand out. You can just put whatever the fuck you want and use it, and people will buy it. So after a year, we felt it deeply in our revenue stream, because 2022 was still pretty good, like minus 10% versus previous year. So we thought, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad. But then again, I thought that there were long-term consequences. And this year was really bad one in terms of revenue. So we're minus 50 versus previous year. And it's obvious because nobody gives a shit about brand strategy mainly. They don't need it. But there are some companies that we still do work with who recognize the value of it, and we bring them this value. However, we are changing our business model to become a marketing consultancy, because my business partner is a guy who's 18 years of experience for marketing strategy, and he's basically teaches MBA at the biggest business school in Russia called Skolkovo, strategic marketing to executives. So this is the biggest business school in the country, and the level of expertise is there. So we thought, okay, let's try some other markets. So we looked around, and we realized that India is a really interesting place because of many reasons. So there is this historical bonds between the nations, and generally Indians are more welcoming in terms of Russians and Russian language in particular as well, because there were dark times where Soviet Union helped out in terms of food supplies, and it's still remembered by this day so far. So we of course doesn't cancel all the shit and bad that Soviet Union did in terms of the Soviet bloc. However, in India it was a bit different perception. So we thought about it, why not? And then we started to develop it, and as I said, I have like deep connections with India, so I immediately try to pull all my connections and start to kind of dig into the research. So we looked at the market, and we realized that actually funny thing that before the war started, so roughly January 2021, Russia was business like trade partner number 25 in terms of the volume and revenue for Russia. And so Russia was for India, sorry. And once the war started, I think it was roughly by the end of 2022 or maybe even beginning 2023, Russia became trade partner number 5. So, just 1 year like this, and it was even before the volumes of oil started to pour in. So Europe has cancelled supply of carbon, fuel basically, meaning oil and oil products from Russia. but it is being shipped to India, and then from India is being sold to EU, and there you go. So EU is still buying oil from Russia, but nobody gives a shit because it's, you know, indirect, and we're not buying it from Russia, we're buying it from India. So anyway, and there's this other construct which is called BRICS. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa regionally. And of course, you could have heard some words from Brazilian president about US and position of other countries around so-called Western world and US in particular. So they decided to kind of build this partnership and make it even stronger to kind of bring connections together, bring businesses and work together. And obviously with this direction, India has become a really interesting market for Russia because, you know, Russia has a lot of capacity in terms of knowledge and expertise in certain areas. Like fintech in Russia is fucking sublime. It's like ahead of the entire world, I tell you. I mean, I'm using an application as a physical person and as an entrepreneur, and I'm filing taxes with just one fucking click. Same click, well, different click, but just one click, and I pay the taxes. That's it. I mean, no paperwork, no nothing. The banking does for me, and telecom, of course, is very developed, and there are like mines who've been now prohibited to enter EU market. So of course there were people who relocated due to the war, and within the big multinationals some people did relocate, but roughly out of those, I don't know how many, 2 million people that left the country, probably a million or 1.5 million went back for many reasons. They couldn't even just stay somewhere because of no jobs or sources of income, or even visa restrictions, because Russian passport doesn't open many doors. So you need to get visas in the majority of countries, but in locations like India, it's simpler. In Thailand, for instance, as well, and some other like ex-CIS countries mainly. Not all of them, of course, but still. And yeah, so some people left, some people came back, and we thought, yeah, let's do India. So we entered the, well, we didn't enter yet, we're in the process of it. So my first visit, well, actually 5th in a row or 6th in a row, I keep forgetting the count, in May this year. And the meetings that I've had gave me an understanding that, yeah, I mean, the Indian market's like 15 years behind Russia in terms of marketing expertise and knowledge. And we here in Russia are like advanced in terms of knowledge and expertise, like us as a business. And in India, we're like, even from future pretty much. But this carries a major problem. So if you remember, I said that the value that is being recognized by very few companies in terms of what we do is even kind of tougher in India, because it's even smaller number of companies, because they are not there yet, the majority of cases, but big multinationals that are there. So, you know, it's a good place to start. But whilst thinking about it, I thought about, you know, making something that could draw attention to us as a business. Because if I go to a company and tell them, look guys, we're this agency, we'll build brand strategies and, you know, unite your business around your brand, and then blah blah blah, and they're like, so what, we don't need it. They don't even know what the brand is in the majority of cases. And actually, what is brand? Like, seriously think about it and just take a pause and think, what is brand? Because brand is a unique set of associations, perception of an individual in regards to the company brand assets. So a logo is not a brand itself. A slogan is not a brand itself. Creative advertising is not a brand itself. They're just basically touch points, and if you can align them and put a piece through a piercing through idea across all channels and touch points, you can then create a perception, a desired perception, not the perception that may happen and will happen eventually, because whether you want it or not, the perception of your brand is being kind of created in the minds of people. So if you're not taking care of it, they can think whatever they want. But if you're trying to kind of create this perception and you align everything that you do, you can succeed pretty much. But it requires a strategic approach in terms of like longitude, and it's roughly, well, at least year and a half to build a brand, pretty much, or rebuild it, or reshape it, or reinvent it, and it takes time. So we thought about India, and we're here. And during my visit in May, I come to realize that we're not desired here, which is obvious for sure. And what can we do? So we have our minds, we don't have money. What can we do? And I met some people who are involved in social projects, and I thought about what if we could help women of India. And I heard about this problem that women are being aborted after the ultrasound test shows that they're women, and people just decide to abort because of baby being girl. And we thought, like, this is insane. We need to fix it. I mean, it's impossible to live in a world like this. We need to do something about it. And I thought about, starting off with this and work with the team to come up with some good ideas. But after we started the research, we came to realization that it is no longer that issue, because again, they've prohibited ultrasound tests, and no longer an issue that they're not being aborted, but they're still being killed. So if a girl is being born, she may be killed because she's a girl. Welcome. And this is like fucking next level problem. But we try to kind of concentrate our knowledge and expertise around some more specific areas, and we narrow it down to a more daily problem, which is menstrual health. So there are a lot of issues, like a lot of issues in terms of the menstrual health of women in India, and just gonna walk you through a project of mine that I've been working on. So this is my second screen. The project is called Shri Shakti. I may be not pronouncing it properly. So again, it's basic overview. It lacks specifics. It lacks clarity even, and still, it gives you an idea, and I'll try to walk you through it. So what we thought is that we gather all these problems, we dig into this, and we have this beautiful team of sociologists and strategists and our marketing expertise. We can put it to work, like literally. So we thought about what if brands would be the ones that kind of drive this change and lead by example and sponsor it. So since we're a marketing company, or nowadays marketing consultancy pretty much, because this is what we do, we consult, we tell companies what to do and what not to do in terms of marketing, and we supervise them. So they could be the change drivers pretty much. And we thought that, in order for the humankind to progress further, we need to unite people and help ourselves work together as human species. And women have like insane potential for the further development of the entire species, because women don't start fucking wars. But if you kill a woman, she may not be able to prevent the war. So we thought that it's important to help women not only to be born, but to reach their full potential. And India is a place where this potential is just fucking insane, like $1.5 billion population. So if you look at big IT companies, you may recognize the fact that in the majority of big IT companies, including like Google, Microsoft, and others, their heads are Indians. So you can definitely say that they've got fucking brains and the ability to do it. But the problem is that women don't have a chance, pretty much. They don't stand a chance. And recently, of course, there are big shifts in terms of like entire population of the whole planet, in terms of women empowerment and equality of rights and things like this. But we're still lagging behind. So our eyes are here in India, and we're dig deep, and we recognize that the level of problems is just insane, because it's not only accessibility of products for menstrual health, like pads or anything, or underwear. There is this cultural taboo. So first of all, well, there is lack of education, of course, but it's not the only problem. So you can fix it easily. You can bring this education. you can even bring the products, but there is this cultural taboo. So for instance, a young girl, she finds out about period basically when she faces one, and then there's this whole sense of shame that is following you throughout your life as a woman, pretty much, especially in your family, because father figures, they're like fucking patriarchal to the narrow bone, how you say it. So they're very touchy about this topic. They're, you know, they prohibit to kind of discuss it. There were like cases where men kind of said they won't be using same toilet with the woman from their family because she was menstruating. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, seriously, what's the fucking wrong with you? But again, it is a cultural aspect, and it's written in Manuskriti, if I pronounce it correctly. So it is deep-rooted in the culture, but the problem is that those scripts were written by fucking men, you know? So there's this patriarchy even in the matriarchal society in India. So we're now trying to kind of nail it down and find the sweet spot where we could address all the issues within one project. So we started to dig into the disc research, and we came up with some ideas, and we thought about them, and we now are in the stage of pitching pretty much, because we had conversations with NGO. I met with NGO yesterday to discuss, well, this NGO, it's called Charka. They're specialized in women health and menstrual health pretty much. They're working with remote areas, with rural areas, and they help women there through education and provision of goods. So it was extremely fruitful conversation, and there are NGOs that are working in this direction, at least 30 of them, to the best of my knowledge, but it could be like hundreds or even more. And we are thinking about uniting them all and bringing them together to, you know, come up with something that would address all those issues. Because there was a funny thing, well, it's tragical, but still, at some point in time, it was a sex education bill, or not bill, or like, I don't know, legal whatever law introduced about implementing it to the schools, and 12 states banned it. The reason being is that, you know, it was word sex, so it's kind of, you know, Western shit, and, you know, this influence, it's kind of not what we do here. And now I'm trying to address the corporate world, so I met with Oriflame today, and they're pretty interested in doing it. So we will be working specific ideas, and then kind of drill down to a very specific execution, and then bring others on board. Ideally, we need partners from India in terms of communication. We definitely need somebody from the media agency. We definitely need a local strategist to kind of work our approach around the nuances of the cultural religion, because it's very touchy aspect. Of course, you cannot talk about religion in general. So yeah, this is the pitch, the execution, and we're planning to do it by the end of this year. So this is the reason I'm here in India. And I'm also trying to, of course, get some connections. But other than that, it's a beautiful country. Not all people love India. I do. I have a strong connection, and my team is arriving on Saturday. Another 5 people from Fnatic, and we will go to Leh. It's capital somewhat of Ladakh region. It's Himalayas pretty much. It's located on 3,500 meters above sea. Yeah, we're gonna spend time there and talk about the project as well, and talk about the future of our business. But yeah, it's just Fnatic. I got a lot of other projects that I can talk about, but probably next time, because I need to go and meet my mates across the road because they haven't seen me. So cheers, stay tuned.